Hi, I'm Adriana. My parents secretly signed over the house I grew up in to my brother. No warning, no explanation, just gone. And when I found out, I didn't yell, I didn't beg, I bought it back, quietly. But that was only the beginning. What would you do if your family erased you like that? Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own home? What time are you hearing this? And where are you tuning in from? Leave a comment. I'd really love to know. I brought a bottle of Pinot Noir I knew no one would drink. It was a habit I hadn't broken, showing up prepared, polite, performing the version of myself they never noticed. The air in Astoria that evening smelled like wet cedar and unresolved things. When my mom opened the door, her smile was too wide, the kind that tried to stretch over discomfort. She kissed my cheek lightly and turned before I could say anything. The house looked familiar but foreign. Same beige walls, same photo frames, but the energy was tilted. Colby's sneakers were by the front door, half untied. A gaming chair dominated the living room like a throne. I could hear his voice upstairs, laughing at something through a headset. Dinner was reheated pot roast and store-brand sparkling water. Dad talked about retirement. Mom asked if I was still doing the computer stuff. I nodded, offered the wine. No one touched it. It wasn't until dessert, store-bought pound cake still in its plastic shell, that Dad said it. Well, Colby'll have his hands full keeping this place up once we're gone. The sentence was tossed out casually, like a passing comment about the weather. But it landed like a slap. I looked up. Mom didn't flinch. It just makes sense, she added. He's here. You're not. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to, because behind her shoulder, through the kitchen window, I could see the maple tree I planted when I was 10. Still there, still growing, still mine. And I realized in that moment, everything else had changed. 2 days later, back in Portland, an email slid into my inbox. Subject line, listing coordination inquiry, 145 Cedar Street. It was from a local realtor. Friendly tone. Hi, Adriana. Just confirming whether you're the secondary contact on the property? My breath stopped. I opened the county's online record system and searched the address. My name wasn't there, not even in the tax history. It had been replaced. They hadn't told me. They hadn't even asked. It wasn't a mistake. They didn't forget me. They removed me. I sat on the floor, back against the fridge, scrolling through 5 years' worth of payment receipts, property taxes, emergency plumbing, the home nurse I hired after Mom's hip surgery. My Venmo history was a quiet biography no one would read. I didn't reply to the realtor. I didn't call my parents. I didn't text Colby. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Some truths are sharper when they're delivered with silence. The morning after the email, I woke up too early. The city hadn't stretched yet. I stood in my kitchen in socks, waiting for the kettle to boil, the same way I waited for things that never arrived. Calls, acknowledgments, a reason to go back. I opened Facebook without thinking. That was my mistake. There it was, a post from my mom. Throwback to simpler times, she wrote, with 3 heart emojis and a photo I knew by heart. It was taken on the porch, right after the roof got replaced. I remembered the way the breeze lifted the edge of my sweater, how I had knelt next to our old dog Max, hand on his neck like a tether to childhood. In the photo she posted, I wasn't there, just Mom, Dad, and Colby, smiling like a holiday card. Framed by the house I helped save and the porch I once painted in the summer heat while everyone else was inside arguing about takeout. I stared at the edge of the image. You could still see the tail of Max, cut off mid-wag, and a sliver of my sleeve. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been edited out. I didn't finish my coffee. I closed the laptop gently, as if it might crack from the weight of the omission. My chest felt tight, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't shock, just confirmation. A truth I had always known but never put into words. I sent her a message, just one line. That photo, was I in it originally? She replied within minutes. Oh, it was just for symmetry, sweetheart. Don't be so sensitive. Of course. Of course it was about symmetry. Balance, framing, things that mattered more than my presence. I didn't respond. Instead, I remembered a conversation from years ago after I got my first 4.0 GPA in college. I had called her, proud, hopeful, waiting for the kind of praise I saw her give Colby when he passed a single midterm. She'd said, "That's great, but Colby's B means more. He works harder than you do." I remember thanking her. I remember meaning it. I don't know why. I opened my photo gallery, years of images stored like digital proof that I was there, that I mattered. And yet, in almost every family picture, I was off to the side, or behind the camera, or missing entirely. I zoomed in on one taken during Dad's birthday last year. Mom was cutting the cake, Colby had his arm around her shoulder, and I was setting the table in the background. You could see only the back of my head. I'd spent years showing up, arranging the shot, fixing the angle, waiting for someone to say, "Come stand in the middle." No one ever did. I scrolled back to the Facebook post, looked at the comments. "Beautiful family. So sweet. Colby looks just like your husband. Where's Adriana?" No one had asked that, because no one had noticed. Maybe next time I won't stand in the shot at all. 6 months ago, I sat in the hallway of Astoria General with a paper cup of lukewarm coffee and the billing email glowing on my phone. The line item for post-op nurse care stretched across the screen, $2,300 up front. Paid by me. Groceries for the week, delivered, meds, picked up, ride to and from the hospital, arranged. Colby arrived late, carrying nothing but his phone. He stayed just long enough to take a photo by Mom's bedside, then slipped out before the nurse came in to change her bandages. Still, when the door closed behind him, she looked at me and smiled. "Thank God Colby was here," she said softly. "He never leaves my side." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the energy to correct her. A week later, she shared that photo in the family group chat, Colby holding a bouquet I'd ordered, Mom glowing beside him. The caption, "He's truly the best son." My thumb hovered over the message for a long time. I didn't type anything, just reopened the Venmo app, scrolling through months of quiet deposits. $185, home meds, $420, grocery bundle, $1,700, emergency dental, Dad's. There was no photo of me, no caption, no glow. I wasn't doing it for credit, but it hurts to be erased. That night, Colby posted an Instagram story, a photo of him standing outside the hospital, half turned toward the camera, smirking, doing what real sons do. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so familiar. I watched the video while eating instant noodles, half sitting on my couch surrounded by folders of overdue client invoices. I had called the nurse line 3 times that week about Mom's recovery. I'd worked late and skipped meals to keep things running. But he had the bouquet, and the likes. The world claps for the one who shows up last, if he smiles loud enough. I opened my budgeting spreadsheet, the one I'd kept since 2019. Over $6,400 in parental expenses this year alone. And not once, not one time, had they asked how that was working out for me. I wasn't bitter, not exactly, but I was starting to realize something. Maybe love that isn't acknowledged is just another form of servitude. I still remember the color of the bathroom tiles that day, pale green, chipped in the corners. I was sitting on the floor, knees to my chest, phone face down on the bath mat like it had betrayed me too. I had just lost my job. A layoff email sent at 10:03 a.m. No warning, no severance. Rent was due in 2 weeks. My savings account blinked back at me like it was embarrassed. For the first time in years, I let myself reach for something I had long been trained to believe wasn't mine to touch. Help. I called my mother. I still remember the way my voice sounded when she picked up, too soft, already apologizing. "Hey, Mom. I was wondering if maybe I could come home, just for a little while. I just need to regroup." There was a pause, not shock, calculation. "Oh, sweetie, I wish, but the house is really full right now. Colby's setting up his study space in the living room. He's retaking that certification exam next month, remember? He needs the focus. You understand, right?" I said yes. I said it too quickly. Then I hung up and didn't call back. It wasn't about the room. It never was. It was about place, about presence, about who gets to need something without being told they're in the way. I scrolled through old texts that night, dozens from me. Check-ins, holiday wishes, forwarded articles I thought she'd like. Most went unanswered or with a thumbs up. I stopped sending them after that. A few months later, I made a quick visit to drop off a birthday gift for Dad. I didn't stay for cake. I said I had a Zoom call, which was a lie. I just didn't want to stay long enough to feel invisible again. As I walked through the living room, I glanced around. No books, no study guides, no signs of an exam. Just Colby in the corner, gaming headset on, yelling at someone in another time zone. There had been space, plenty of it, just not for me. They said there wasn't room. What they meant was, there wasn't room for who I was when I wasn't giving. And that was the quietest betrayal of all. I had saved that voicemail for months, not because it held comfort, but because I needed proof that I had tried, that I wasn't always distant, always independent, always fine. That night, I deleted it. It didn't make me feel strong. It made me feel honest. That was the last time I asked for help. I haven't needed to since, but I've never forgotten the silence. I didn't expect balloons, or candles, or even a slice of store-bought cake. I didn't expect much at all, really. But I think I expected something. The morning of my birthday, I woke up in my Portland apartment to the sound of traffic and nothing else. My phone screen was blank. No calls, no texts, no notifications. I sat in bed longer than usual, not because I was tired, but because I didn't know how to move through a day that no one else seemed to notice. When I was a kid, birthdays were quiet but warm. Handwritten cards, a slightly lopsided cake, a photo in front of the maple tree in the backyard. Even if I wasn't the center of attention, I was at least acknowledged. But now, I scrolled through Facebook and saw Mom's post. Surprised Colby with his gaming chair today. He deserves all the comfort. Colby's grinning face sat next to a $600 ergonomic throne, tagged with comments like, "Best mom," and "What a great son." It was 8:42 p.m. when I finally got a text from her. Hope it was a chill one. That was it. Not even a happy birthday. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I wasn't angry, just quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when something ends, and you don't even realize it until much later. Last year, I'd tried to make it special, not for myself, but for her. I booked a prepaid reservation at her favorite bistro, just the two of us. I even added a little note to the confirmation email. "Thank you for every quiet birthday you gave me." She canceled the night before. That's a bit much, don't you think? Let's not make a fuss. 3 days later, she threw Colby a party for his new job. There were balloons, matching shirts, a cake with his face on it. When I asked how it went, she said, "He looked so happy. He deserves that kind of attention." Maybe I never did. Maybe that's why I stopped setting reminders. I opened my calendar and deleted the one labeled "Buy Mom's Mother's Day gift." Not out of spite, just to stop pretending that effort always means something. They call me dramatic, but maybe they just don't like being seen. It's not that I needed a cake. I just needed not to be invisible. It was almost midnight when I opened the banking app. My fingers already knew the steps. Tap, slide, confirm. Another $1,200 gone. Plumbing this time. Urgent, according to Mom's voicemail. "The house can't go another day like this, honey. We'd freeze." I made the transfer without asking questions. That's what I did. That's what I'd always done. Quiet fixes, invisible support. That week, I skipped the grocery store. I stretched canned soup and stale granola bars. I canceled my therapy session, told myself it was temporary. That warmth mattered, that my parents mattered. And then, scrolling through Facebook during my break at work, I saw it. A photo of Colby, arms folded proudly, standing next to a glossy, high-end gaming chair. "Finally got him the chair he deserves. He's worked so hard lately," Mom had captioned. Dozens of likes, fire emojis, comments like "well earned," and "what a great son." I stared at the picture until my phone screen blurred. It was the same amount, down to the dollar. So the house didn't need heat. It needed a throne. A few days later, I ran into Mrs. Kelly, their neighbor, while dropping off a package I'd had misdelivered. "Heard your brother's been doing great with the house repairs," she smiled. "Your mom said he really stepped up. Impressive guy." I didn't say anything, just nodded, handed her the box, and walked back to my car. Later that night, I heard Mom's voice on a call through the speakerphone as I passed my open window. Colby really came through. He figured out the plumbing issue all on his own. We're so lucky to have him. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just sat down, opened my laptop, and started printing. One by one, receipts, transfer confirmations, screenshots of messages, dates, amounts, details. Not for them, for me. I needed to see it all in one place, the proof, the record of my existence, because I'd stopped trying to be appreciated. I started preparing to be remembered on paper. It started with a whisper, not in my ear, but behind my back. I was sipping tea by the window when the phone rang. My aunt's number. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Her voice was low, careful. "Sweetheart, I don't want to get in the middle," she began. "But your mom, she said you stopped talking to everyone, that you walked away when they needed you." The cup in my hand went still. I didn't say anything. I let her fill the silence. She did slowly. She said the house taxes went unpaid, that the county's threatening legal action. I just wanted to hear it from you. I thanked her for calling. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself, because I already knew. They weren't just deleting me quietly anymore. Now they were replacing me publicly, painting me as the ungrateful one, the selfish daughter who abandoned them when things got hard. The irony would have been almost funny, if it hadn't been so precise. I sat back and thought about the past 5 years. Every automatic transfer, every plumbing invoice, every roof patch and termite inspection I'd quietly paid for without asking them to repay a cent. They didn't just take the house. They took my name and handed it back stained. That afternoon, June called. Her voice was sharp in a way that made me feel less alone. "I talked to your mom," she said, no preamble. And then I checked the records. My throat tightened. "She's lying, Adriana. You've paid for everything. Why would she say that?" I didn't know. Or maybe I did. Because if I was the villain, she didn't have to feel guilty. If I was absent, then Colby could be the savior. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop instead, pulled up the folder I'd started the week before, labeled simply, Proof. 5 years worth of documentation, dates, amounts, bank transfers. I sent it to June. No message, just the facts. She replied with a single heart emoji, and for once that felt like enough. I sat at the dining table, the sun slipping down behind the window, casting long shadows across the receipts I'd printed. No more silence, no more hoping they'd remember what I did when it mattered. If they were going to speak for me, I would start preparing my version. And this time, it would be undeniable. The call came on a Thursday. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet I wasn't really seeing, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number from the county office. The woman on the other end had a calm voice, like she was delivering neutral news. "Miss Worth, based on your payment history, you may qualify for a stakeholder redemption. Since you've contributed significantly to the property taxes over the past 5 years, you have the legal right to purchase the home outright before it proceeds to public auction." My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. There was no panic, only clarity. "Yes," I said. "I'd like to proceed." 3 days later, I signed the purchase papers at a small law office across town. No ceremony, no calls, no drama. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't need to. The deed arrived in the mail the following week, my name printed cleanly across the top. No footnotes, no shared ownership, just me. I wasn't buying back a house. I was buying back a version of myself they had edited out of their story. The silence that followed felt different this time. It didn't feel like absence. It felt like control. Then came the message. From my mother, of course. "We didn't mean for it to end like this. We're still a family. You didn't have to go this far." No apology, just a recalibration of guilt. I stared at the screen, not angry, not surprised. I forwarded it to my attorney without a word. They only remembered me when the house became vulnerable. When they lost control, suddenly I mattered again. I drove to the house early one morning, a soft gray sky pressing down over Astoria. The trees were starting to turn. The front yard was cluttered with fallen leaves and forgotten things, an old wind chime, a broken hose, a single sneaker left near the porch. I stepped up and inserted the key. It turned smoothly. It had always stuck before. The air inside was musty, But it smelled like something else too, like peace. The furniture was gone. The walls still held faint outlines of where pictures had once hung. But the tree outside my old window still stood. Taller now, wilder. This house forgot me once, but I didn't forget it. And now, neither will they. The porch still smells like pine. Not the kind bottled in car fresheners, but something older. Wood soaked by decades of rain, warmed by sun that always came back too late in Astoria. I stood there for a while that morning, not doing anything, not thinking anything extraordinary, just standing. The same way I did when I was 10, watching the tree I planted stretch an inch taller every year. Now, it towers over the roofline. They never trimmed it, probably forgot it was mine. The house is quiet, empty. They left 3 days ago. No screaming, no drama, just a text from Mom saying they'd cleared their things. Colby didn't even show. The gaming chair is still here. It wasn't about the house. It never was. It was about who got to belong in it. I walked through each room slowly, not to take inventory, but to feel the silence, to let it speak. No framed photos, no shoes kicked under the sofa. The kitchen smells like dust and old coffee. The smell of goodbye. On the counter, I found a note. Folded once, no envelope. We didn't know how to love you in the way you needed. I hope this house gives you what we couldn't. No signature, just neat handwriting. Probably Mom's. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I folded the paper and slid it into the back of an old photo album I found in a drawer. Not out of forgiveness, just for the record. Some stories don't need to be resolved. They just need to be finished. Later, I rehung the only photo I'd brought with me, a picture from college. I'm standing in the center, arms open wide, laughing without trying. It's crooked, but it's mine. The next day, I started a list. Repaint the walls, warm gray. Replace the curtains. Maybe take down the wind chime. Nothing big, just signs of life, my life. They didn't leave a mess. But they left behind echoes. And now I get to choose what sound comes next. You don't have to win to move forward. You just have to stop giving them the map. This house won't fix what they broke, but it reminds me I survived it. I used to think that love meant giving until you were empty, until someone noticed. But now I understand that being unseen in a place you've helped build isn't just painful, it's unsustainable. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can remember the good and still choose peace. Sometimes healing doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from reclaiming your space, quietly, fully, and without permission. What about you? Have you ever felt erased from your own family's story? What did you do with that silence? If this story touched something in you, drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. If it didn't resonate, I'd still love to hear why, and what part of the story felt far from your experience. And if you want more stories that feel like truth whispered in your ear, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your voice belongs here. You belong here.